Hello, Shalom Olam. Welcome to The Spiritual Life with Mystic Travis Tidwell, also psychic medium. I want to welcome you to my podcast. This is actually episode 3. And if you were here for the first podcast, you've heard it, then you know that I've asked you to bring a crystal to your podcast and to bring it with you every time you listen to my podcast. You can develop a relationship with that crystal and create the energy of learning and sharing and storing information. There's many different systems on being spiritual, and there's many different philosophies on being spiritual and different views on being spiritual. And I'm here today to promote Sacred Dragon's philosophy and use this as a platform in all my podcasts because I haven't written a book yet. And this is one way to kind of make it chronicled on some level for myself. But again, we're talking about different philosophies. Now, in our last episode, we were talking about belief systems that don't work. You know, we have to go back to the source, to the center. So we have to go back before Christianity. Again, I'm promoting the Adam and Eve consciousness in this podcast. And before I go any further, I want to acknowledge my executive producer here, Athena, who's a high priestess in Sacred Dragon. And by the way, my top high priestess is a psychic for a living, and that's what she's doing. She's graduated on some high level with me. I can make anybody here a psychic and create a spiritual life for them and a foundation if they want to really adhere and put time in. A lot of people think they want to be spiritual. A lot of people think, well, yeah, I think I want to do that. And they do it for a year and then they just don't finish it, or they just whatever. I mean, it's almost like a church. A lot of people go to a church, they'll go to a religion, and they'll go for a while, and then they think, well, this isn't working for me, I'm going to go somewhere else. And so it's good to be informed. And you got to get in where you fit in. I mean, that's one of my old mottos here. My oldest son taught me. And you have to think about that. Where do I fit in? What works for me? If I look at this belief system, if I follow this religion, or if I follow this spirituality system, or whatever, is it going to make me successful? Can I be successful with it? Is it going to help change my life in a better way instead of something that's worse? I mean, a lot of people we talk to who are spiritual are overwhelmed. Oh my God, the universe is crumbling and all this stuff's going on in their life, and they just seem so sensitive, And in Sacred Dragon, we're trying to empower people with the knowledge of your divine source as well as your earthly mother here, using metaphysics, quantum physics, and Kabbalah spelled with a Q, the mysticism. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight on this podcast was is that we're all against Starseeds here. And it's such a beautiful thing when you think about Earth. We've all been imported here different ways, it feels like. And we're all starseeds here. And none of us are from Earth. We're all aliens here. And we've been imported into a extraterrestrial planet that was that way before we got here. We ourselves right now, and those of you listening to me, are living in the Adam and Eve consciousness, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, Adam and Eve. Welcome them to the show. Because the Christ consciousness doesn't work. As far as the Jesus Christian stuff, Jesus is a great teacher for unconditional love. But then people start to think that love is pain, and I can forgive you, and even though you've raped me and beaten me, or it's that kind of mentality. And also too, what Christians forget is the word karma, and karma's been here way before Christianity, and Jesus knew what the word karma was. And Jesus is my master teacher for level 3 Reiki, as I'm a level 3 Reiki master, and so is Athena here, my executive producer. I have other Reiki masters in my organization, and I make Reiki masters all day long. I'm the guy who does that for people. But going back to the podcast here, one thing I love about the philosophy that I've created, it's universal. On one of my future podcasts, for those of you who are actually going to go to YouTube and look at The Spiritual Life with Travis Tidwell, will realize that I honor all gods and goddesses. And we look at the Kabbalah showing us that there's a chain of command on some level. So we know that in the first commandment where it says, thou shalt not worship no gods before me, our divine source, Yahweh, or Adonai, or whatever name you want to put on a divine source, is telling us that there's other gods out there and goddesses. That's what this commandment's telling us. Thou shalt not worship no gods before me. I took you out of bond, 40 years of bondage from Egypt. Come on, give me a break. You know what I'm saying? That's that law kind of what we're talking about here. And we're modifying certain things, but not that. You're not going to worship anybody before Yahweh. That's the first commandment. So, you know, that was before the Christ consciousness that came in through Jesus. Now, again, I want to remind everybody that we're living in the Adam and Eve consciousness. And so because of that, really, Jesus isn't Jesus Christ. His real title is Jesus, Lord of the Christ, because Christ is an energy. It's not a person, but he represents that energy. And I want to define that in every podcast, get people educated on what the true proper title is and how this is working for us here on this podcast. Because he is my third level Reiki master teacher. Also in this podcast, we're looking at, again, universal belief systems. Now, it's funny because I do have my own system of numerology that I use. There's many systems out there. One of my personal guides, and again, I also don't want to forget to announce or give props to Sacred Dragon, because this podcast is being powered by Sacred Dragon. Athena is a high priestess in Sacred Dragon. I am the president and CEO and master ceremonial magician here. So, and it's, the god Hermes who inspired me to reopen this organization, which he had over 2,000 years ago as a divine Pymander. And also this podcast and this organization, Sacred Dragon, is being powered by Yahweh, because I am a son of God, and we are being moved every day in our lives here in Sacred Dragon and in my home by the finger of God. And if you know what Hebrew alphabet letter that is, and man, you just came up, okay? Because it's all about knowledge. To be spiritual, you got to start learning. You got to start feeding your higher self. If you go to my first two podcasts, I talk about higher, lower self and give you an exercise. I give you an exercise number 2 to do to help you in your spiritual life, because we all want to create that. But you don't want to become so passive in your life that you're not changing anything and you're just kind of being submissive to everything that comes along. It's not the way it's supposed to work either. It's called karma, and karma works in different ways. Again, that we know from our stories, as well as stories from Hinduism. I have Ganesh on my altar and Shiva, and I love Lord Rama and the stories, and I'm connected to everybody and everything. I love Buddha. Why wouldn't I? But I also know too that for like in Hinduism, they definitely show how they come in spaceships, and how they have extraterrestrial gods who empower them, which is definitely true. And that's because they're their own starseed from another galaxy here visiting with us. And that's how that's happening. That's why we can intermingle here in this third dimension world we're living in now. And so it's amazing to see that. But so once I worship Yahweh as the Most High and Supreme, I can talk to any god and goddess I want, honor them and admire them and adore them in some way. And I'm in my spiritual legal right to do that. If you don't know the 10 Commandments, check them out, because it doesn't say in the first commandment, thou shalt not worship no gods before me until my son Jesus is born. It's not working like that either. Jesus is a teacher for love, and he's the master healer. So it's all about unconditional love and master healing. He's a master healer, and we need to give him those props. But here in Sacred Dragon, our philosophy, again, we're also talking about Moses, ladies and gentlemen. He is the lawgiver. Jesus is the messenger of love and compassion. He's the extension of God for love and compassion, to show the love and compassion by representing the Christ, the office of the Christ. But then we look at Moses being the lawgiver. He shows the strength and severity of God, which is what we need in our lives. We need to be able to make those right choices and cut these people loose who are toxic. If you're not happy, you need to ask yourself why. And that's the other thing about being spiritual. It's going to make you look at stuff you don't want to look at. Or I've been dragging this person along for how many years? I know I really don't want to be with them, but I can't go anywhere else. I mean, you start setting yourself up for these false situations and imprisonments you put yourself through. You think you can't leave this person or you can't create something new, when that's really not true. But those are mundane thoughts. And when you become spiritual, all of a sudden, those thoughts that you're having are unlimited, and they're coming from the universe and your divine source, and they're showing you and bringing information to you that's going to help change and create things in your life. So also being partly spiritual here tonight, we're talking about not only being more of a cosmic citizen here and raising the vibration of your mentality, but I'm also telling you that your God connection is the first and only thing you really do have, because our source has created everything living, and not only in this galaxy but others. And it's funny how again, we're talking about the Old Testament here. I have Jewish in me, European that is, but the whole thing is that I know my executive producer going, come on, don't do this now. Throw a little bit of humor in here. But anyway, so, we have to look at Kabbalah also being one of the few systems that shows how all religions are part of the living tree of life. And that's the other consciousness we need on this planet. You can't say that this is the only way. I'm not even saying that I'm the only way and my philosophy is the only way. There's other philosophies out there. Whatever you adhere to is something you need to look at. But it should be something that has a universal belief in it. Now, I'm a strong knower, not just a believer, but a knower that if you're not living by the Ten Commandments, you're suffering. Because that's why we're given those laws. And those are 10 basic laws to live by. And it doesn't say you can't play with an oracle or be a mystic or divination or anything of that nature. And if you don't know the 10 laws, we're not going to go over those right now, but you need to research those for yourself. Also, tonight on this podcast, I want to remind everybody that I do have an album out on Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, other places, I'm sure, Napster. It's called Travis Tidwell, Time Has Come. And I'd love to have you go to that one of these outlets and check it out for yourself. It's spiritual. It's empowering. I have empowerment through the words of Solomon and the prayers of Solomon through Kabbalah on some of these songs. I also have an Angel Gabriel song it's really great. A lot of people love it. So check out Travis Tidwell. Time Has Come on Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, iHeartRadio. I'm all over. Also, the other thing I wanted to put out there tonight is that eventually here I'm going to be seeking premium members for my podcast. I do have another podcast out there, Travis Tidwell Mystic Psychic Medium, but that's on a pause right now. I'm reformatting everything, and between my music and podcast, I'm busy. Plus, I'm also a psychic medium and a mystic for a living. My organization is Sacred Dragon. And again, this podcast and everything I do right now spiritually is through Sacred Dragon. That's a whole different series of podcasts. Also tonight, I wanted to give a shout out to my girl Shelly, who does my hair and man makeover at Rosa's Salon in Coronado, because she's worth that. She really does. She keeps me feeling good, looking good. And if you feel good and you look good and you're doing good, you know what I'm saying? It's all about everything you can do to make yourself feel good. You have to be excited when you get up. You have to have that God connection, knowing that you're a son or a daughter of this God, of this divine source that's more powerful than anything in any universe. And then you start feeling empowered. This is also part of your spiritual growth. I'm not a Christian, but I'm Christ-like. If you haven't heard the word Reiki, another thing to Google. Thank God for Google out there, because this is just a small podcast. If you want real deep information from me, I got it for you. But you're going to have to become a premium member or contact me. Right now, I'm offering you that if you send me your date of birth, I will email you back your assigned angel so you can find out who your assigned angel is and start making that a daily prayer in your life, so that will also add to your spiritual life. Because I'm here to help you create a spiritual life. The prayers were simple, though. Every day you should be saying, all my angels come close to me now. Okay, angels, this is why I called you today. I need money. I need love. I need a car. I need a parking spot. I mean, you're going to ask that from angels, but not from Jesus. You're going to ask that from him. He does healing work, okay? He promotes love. All right, come on. He's not going to get you that job, okay, Johnny? It's just not going to happen that way. And, you can always ask your divine source, your Heavenly Father, Yahweh, for what you want in life, because he is your father. Like any other parent, he's there for you. Before we wrap this up again, I've asked people to bring their crystal to the podcast. I did. If you can see this on video, it's huge. But seriously, you should have a small crystal that you study with. Keep it with you when you study. When you don't study, put it somewhere safe. Only have it for that reason. Down the road here, we'll have some more information on crystals for you and programming and things like that. I'm kind of reformatting everything here in my multimedia business, because this is part of it for me tonight. You can also go to my website, TravisTidwellPsychic.com, and that shows you a bunch of my services. Now, that needs to be updated to some degree. If it shows you a Phoenix Dragon store, it's not up anymore. It's all about Sacred Dragon and Sacred Dragon only right now. You can email me at TravisTidwellPodcast@gmail.com and let me know it was the spiritual life that you were listening to, and ask me who your assigned angel is by sending me your date of birth. Or if you have a real specific question, if you're going through a tough time when you hear this podcast and you have one question that really helps, email me and I'll email you back on it. I might even put it on the podcast, but I'm willing to do that for you people out there. I'm not a charitable organization. I'm not a church. I'm a licensed minister, though. I do weddings, funerals, baptisms, house cleansings, blessings. I do everything you could think pretty much spiritually, as well as with paranormal. Um, so I'm hoping everybody today got something from this podcast that's going to help create a spiritual life for them. As I can only hope and pray that the people who have turned in to this podcast, that this information would be a blessing, a benefit, and a service for you all who are listening to this tonight or today or whenever your time is that you're checking in with me here on this podcast. And God bless you and your families and your loved ones and your pets and all those who love you. And God bless planet Earth. So be it. Amen. Thank you.